This video is going to explain how the schematic is created and organized in JITX, how to name nets in your design, how to add symbols for nets like power and ground, and how to manage schematic groups with merging and splitting. Overall, with the goal to create a schematic with a layout that we're happy with. When you run a design in JITX, it creates a schematic and a board. We try our best to automatically create an organized schematic. The layout isn't perfect, but you should notice that it gets better over time with new releases. The schematic is fully flattened with globally unique net names. We try to preserve the hierarchical structure from code so that the organization in the schematic reflects the organization of your code. For example, we can zoom into the EEPROM symbol we made and see that a group has been created to hold the module core.control.EEPROM. So that's the EEPROM module inside our instance of the controller, inside our instance of the communications core. Let's start reorganizing our schematic by moving the groups for the USB to the second page of the schematic. So we'll hold down Shift, select these three groups, and let's take the Zener as well, and press Shift 2 to move those schematic groups to the second page of the schematic. Notice that when these groups are moved, all the connections for nets that span pages become multi-page port symbols, and the text labels for connections on the same page remain plain text labels. JITX is tracking the overall connectivity of the design and is going to manage all of those updates for us. We also now have a schematic hierarchical diagram because we have multiple pages indicating what is on each page. The command to move these groups to the second page and all of the other commands in the schematic can be found by opening this Help menu. For example, we can see merge groups and wires is done with Q. So we can select all these groups and press Q to merge them. They will now move together and schematic wires will be routed. Before trying to organize the schematic further, let's add some information in code to improve the schematic. We will add names to nets and designate net symbols. To name a net, add a name between net and the parentheses. So here we can name these USB data, save this and rerun it, and we should see this automatically generated net name take on the name USB data. Notice that we've named a bundle here, so we'll still have names for positive and negative there. Next, let's name our power and ground nets and assign symbols. To assign a symbol in JITX, we say symbol of a net name. It's here ground. Say ground sim. Similarly, we'll have VBus. Save that, run it. And now you can see that we have symbols for our VBus and ground nets here. And also notice that all of our edits to the schematic have been preserved to the greatest extent possible. If we move something in the schematic, JITX will try to preserve that move across all changes to the design. Next, let's adjust the style of the schematic. I'm going to use the schematic UI for the rest of these adjustments, and you can press this button. We have full control over the arrangement of the schematic, including moving, rotating, and mirroring symbols. Select and drag to move, press R to rotate, X to mirror horizontally, and Y to mirror vertically. And you can also move and mirror groups as well. You can select a wire and press delete to split it. Now we've got these resistors split with different ground symbols and we can move them into place. You can also delete extra ground symbols to have them route to the closest one. Another useful command is organize ports. So if we split these wires to get extra labels, we can select this symbol and press G to organize ports, and it will do a local optimization to try to organize everything associated with that symbol. Let's move back to the first page. Adding net symbols gives hints to the automated layout about how to arrange parts, but we ran our design without those net symbols first and locked in a bunch of strange layouts. Let's fix those. So you can select a group and press L to create a local layout for that group. It'll basically run the packing optimization over again to organize the bypass capacitors for this FTDI. Another useful tool is layout copy paste. So if we organize the power filters for the FTDI chip, let's see here. So let's select these two, press Q to route them, press L to do a bit of an auto layout, and then we'll clean that up best we can. And let's create the same group here. You can select this group, press Ctrl C to copy, and Ctrl V to duplicate that layout to another schematic block. We can open the Issues panel to make sure that there's no issues that would cause a problem if this schematic was exported to CAD. Other tools use overlaps of wires and text labels to create connections. Here, JITX knows what the connectivity is, and you're mainly organizing the graphics. So here we have, if you open the Issues panel, double-click here, we can make sure to resolve any overlaps that would cause issues in legacy CAD tools. So let's select this, press L to relayout. We have a collection of pull-up resistors and reset lines here, and we'll move D0 so that they don't overlap. There we go. Okay, no issues remain. Finally, for somewhat advanced usage, everything in this user interface can be done with a command, and we take a customizable hotkey heavy approach. All of the keys can be rebound, and you can add new custom hotkeys for new commands. This is documented online. To run an example command, you can open the window with backtick, and we'll find, let's use find. So we'll find R1. Okay, here we have found R1. You can run other commands like select, and it selects it. And you can also do fairly powerful things like find all the resistors that start with R1. And you can see it's got 4 results that it will then iterate through. Notice that you can't change the connectivity of your design in this tool. The correctness of the design comes from code, and we rely on code to preserve that correctness. This UI is about creating a schematic layout that meets our goals for legibility, for organization, but not necessarily for actually changing the design and modifying the connections that come from code. You can write very powerful code that generates hundreds of pages of schematics, but when you're editing in a schematic view, you're kind of editing the lowest level of your design. Everything smart about it has been flattened out, and it's hard to make changes that are highly reusable. So feel free to apply what you've learned to finish out the organization of the schematic to your preferences, and in the next video, we'll show how to lay out the board for this portion of the circuit.